Have you ever had those ideas in the back of your head that you thought, maybe that'd be cool, but it's probably not gonna happen. And then all of a sudden, out of the blue, you get some new information that kind of hints that maybe you were onto something with your original idea. Well, that is precisely what has happened with the newest trailer that recently dropped a few days ago. And as what seems to be a little bit of a trend with this channel, I seem to be slightly late on the hype train. But hey, now that the hype has kind of settled down, perhaps we can look at this trailer from a new angle. Now, what exactly am I getting at here? Well, for a while now, I've kind of had the feeling that maybe the Ultra Beast's true abilities are not Beast Boost. And why do I think this? Well, one of the quotes that you get by talking to Wick in the Aether Paradise, when you ask her about what exactly the Ultra Beasts are, she responds with, "The UBs surround themselves with an aura called Beast Boost. The truth of this aura is that it is the energy that flows within the Ultra Wormhole. When the Ultra Beasts pass through the wormhole, they are bathed in a great deal of this energy, and it is likely stored within their bodies." But the kind of aha moment came when I watched the trailer. If you somehow haven't seen it yet, it shows the player riding through the Ultra Wormhole in a protective gear, on the back of either Lunala or Solgleo, obviously depending on which version you get. But the biggest and most important piece of information here is that you travel through Ultra Space into the dimensions. So this means that you go to the Ultra Beasts, and therefore they don't have to travel through Ultra Space, meaning that they will not gather any of the energy talked about by Wick, therefore not actually gaining Beast Boost, but rather they would have their own quote-unquote true ability. We have also seen in the trailer that Ultra Beasts do come out of Ultra Space through wormholes still. So what I kind of theorize here is what I'm referring to as their true abilities can be gained by going into their portal via Ultra Space and catching them there. Kind of like how hidden abilities work. I don't know about you, but that certainly makes sense to me so far. But now it's time to do a little bit more speculation. Since I brought all of that up, I might as well bring up what I'm hoping the true abilities are for these Ultra Beasts. And I have gone with two options here. One are abilities that already exist, and the other are brand new, unique abilities that only this Ultra Beast would have. I figured I'd throw these in here because the Ultra Beasts obviously are not of this world, and it would make sense that they have abilities that we have not seen before. Starting off, we have Nihilego, who I'm hoping would gain Levitate as its true ability. This would alleviate the massive 4x weakness it has to ground. But for something more unique, I have one that fits into how it actually behaves, and that is Neurotoxin. Because as we know, Nihilego is a parasitic organism, capable of injecting neurotoxins into those it possesses. The neurotoxins that Nihilego give off tend to stimulate things in humans, such as increased levels of excitement, which cause a loss of inhibition. It's also said to bring out any latent potential within the host that they don't usually bring out. So what I'm thinking with the neurotoxin ability, it would have a 30% chance to raise the attack and special attack, but also lower the defense and special defense of the target, perhaps lowering those last two by 2 stages instead of just 1. But when attacking an ally, this chance would increase to 100%. So it is somewhat of a gimmicky ability, and an incredibly unique one at that. Though I can foresee this being used greatly, especially on double battle teams. Next up we have Buzzwole, who I think would fit rather well with Moxie. Now, I know it is basically the same thing as Beast Boost, but honestly I think it's one of the better abilities that already exist that would fit this Pokemon rather well. Alternatively, however, for the unique ability, I was thinking of something called Essence Drain, as according to one of the descriptions of Buzzwole, it is able to strengthen itself by absorbing the energy of foes. So perhaps this could translate into an ability that would modify contact moves. So all contact moves this Pokemon uses has a 30% chance to increase Buzzwole's attack by 1 stage. Sort of like a free power-up punch, but you could still use this on incredibly powerful moves, as long as they make contact with the foe. Pheromosa would be up next, and I think Speed Boost would be rather fitting, as it is stated that Pheromosa is an incredibly fast Ultra Beast, but I think a more unique ability would be based off of its pheromone attributes. So simply naming this ability Pheromone would make a lot of sense. It is stated that this Ultra Beast produces a certain kind of pheromone. This causes all those nearby to be awestruck by its presence, and this one in particular always struck me as odd, since that bit of flavor text was never really fleshed out in in the games or really in its moveset either. Personally, I think that that's a pretty big hint there, that what I'm saying here might be true. Although, of course, at the end of the day, this is just pure speculation on my part. I could very well be wrong. Anyways, going back to the hidden ability, Pheromone. What I'm thinking here is that each turn, it has a 30% chance to infatuate all opponents. Now, with Pheromosa being genderless, it might cause a slight problem. However, this could be remedied rather easily. And besides, it said that the pheromone it produces is unknown to science. Anyways, moving on from there, we have Xurkitree, who, rather fittingly, could possibly get the Lightning Rod ability, as it is somewhat based off of a tree as well, and if you know, tall objects, such as trees, do often act as lightning rods. I'm sure many of you have heard about trees being struck by lightning before. As for something more unique, I was thinking about something called power cells. So if Xurkitree has not used an electric move in the last turn, then the power of the next electric move will be increased by 50%. Kind of playing the waiting game and being a bit more patient. It also is somewhat interesting that Xurkitree is one of the few Ultra Beasts who possesses just a single type, meaning that it doesn't have the chance to use another move with stab on it. It only gets stab from electric moves. So that would kind of balance out this ability, especially considering Xurkitree's special attack is rather high. Moving on from Xurkitree, we come to Celesteela, and I think I'll start by reading off the description here, because both of the abilities I propose are based off of this feature. Celesteela is described as having a feature that allows it to store energy within itself, a kind of, keyword here, flammable gas that is able to be shot out of its two huge arms. So with that, I would say it could possibly get the Aftermath ability, or another one I had in mind was Afterburner, a unique ability that would increase the power of fire moves by 50%, similar to the way that the Steelworker ability works, except instead of steel moves, it's fire moves. What about Kartana? Well, Tough Claws would fit rather well, as it does have some very sharp blades, the keyword there being blades. So something that I've come up with instead would be called Tempered Blade. This increases the power of slashing, cutting, and sword moves, similar to the way that Mega Launcher, for example, increases the power of aura and burst moves. Guzzlord would obviously be up next, and I think a rather fitting ability would be Gluttony, not just for theming wise, but also somewhat competitively as well. As many of you know, Guzzlord has an incredibly high HP stat, and since the berries that Gluttony takes advantage of can heal percentage health, you would be gaining a rather large portion of it back. Another one that also fits theming wise would be one that I've designed called Voidmouth. This would make it so that Guzzlord has a 30% chance to absorb and heal from all non-contact moves. Think of like an ice beam flying towards Guzzlord. All of the ice particles would fall into the void at the back of its mouth, and the energy from this beam would be used to heal Guzzlord. This would also make Guzzlord a little bit more tanky, albeit not too reliably. Obviously though, during the lead up to Ultra Sun and Moon, we so far, at least at the time of the video, know about 3 brand new Ultra Beasts that were not available before. The first of these being UB Assembly. I think its true ability could be that of Solid Rock, an ability which reduces the effectiveness of super effective moves by 1/4. This would help it out quite a lot, especially with the rather large weakness it has to fighting moves, among other things. Another one I thought about would be called Fortify, and this does kind of fit with the theming. As this creature is made up of multiple beings rather than just one, it does have the ability to reshape itself into a form that would make it a lot easier to defend from the attacks of opposing Pokemon after it learns how they attack. This would translate to having an ability that at the end of each turn, this Ultra Beast's defense would increase by 1 stage, similar to how Speed Boost works, except instead of boosting speed at the end of the turn, you're boosting defense. While I can see this being a rather powerful ability, you do have to remember, UB Assembly has a massive weakness to fighting type moves, which generally are physical in nature. Next, we come to UB Burst, and honestly, the most fitting one I can come up with is Prankster, simply because it's based around a circus theme. The other one, though, is Firecracker that I've come up with. So, when this Pokemon is hit by a fire or electric move, the attacker takes recoil damage, as this is essentially lighting off some of the sparks within UB Burst's head. Of course, though, UB Burst would still take damage normally. And last but not least, we finally come to UB Adhesive, and with a classification like Adhesive in English-speaking countries and Sticky in Japan, Japan, it would make perfect sense that the ability this thing gets would be gooey. But the unique ability I've come up with is called Sticky Venom. So, if UV Adhesive is able to poison the target, then on top of being poisoned, they will also have their speed lowered. And there we are. What do you think about all of these? Do you think this could be a possibility? And do you agree with some of the choices I've given them? Anyways, with that guys, I of course have been the Awesome Soul. I thank you all so very much for watching. I'll be seeing you next time for more interesting Pokemon content just like this. Take care.